Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be using the Darling Dahlias Stamps and Dies and the Miss You Big Time Stamps and Dies. This video is a little bit longer than some of mine have been recently, and the reason that is because we're going back to my roots. We're going back to some bold Copic coloring and some florals, and I'm pretty happy about it. So let's talk about this tone on tone. There's a couple of different ways you can get tone on tone. I'm going to show you two of them here. First and foremost, you can see what I'm doing here is I'm stamping and I am creating a mask. This isn't necessary for tone on tone, but it is necessary for the look I'm going for with my florals in the background. So once I stamped that on my Eclipse masking paper, I just trimmed it out. And then this is the first way that you can do tone on tone. Super subtle, and that is using a no-line coloring ink. I am using craft cardstock. I'm pretty sure this is Nina's Desert Storm, but you could use, this will work on even colored cardstock. You could stamp in a no-line coloring ink, but it will be very subtle. When you see it here, it is while the ink is still wet. I will show it to you again later in the video when it is dry, and you'll be able to see that it is much more subtle. But it is a great way to kind of add a little bit of oomph to your background without having to have any additional supplies. And so I'm just gonna put my mask in place so that I can mask that flower while I stamp my leaves. And then I will use, like I said, this mask for both cards. If you're just using a different kind of stamp in the background, not necessarily a floral where you're building, the mask isn't necessary. But I didn't want to over stamp my flower. So I am showing you, like I said, two ways. This is the first way. Another way that you can do this that I did not show you is by using the same color ink as your paper. So I could have picked out a brown, a lighter brown ink and stamped it in the background. And a fourth way you can use it is by using just embossing ink, which is just like a sticky clear ink. Both the embossing ink with no embossing powder and the no line coloring will be the most subtle versions. Ink stamping in the same color or using clear embossing powder, which will be the second way that I will show you, are going to be the ones that are going to be a bit more noticeable. My personal favorite is the clear embossing in the background. And the reason that is my favorite is because I like the added shine that it gives. Some people probably will not, but I do. I think it makes it's got that tone on tone, but then it makes it just a little bit more interesting than just a plain, simple, stamping in the background. So here is where we're going to do the clear embossing. I'm using our Honeybees clear embossing ink, and I'm going to use that mask the same way. A couple of things to note with that is when I didn't do it the second time. Do as I say, not as I do. Isn't that sometimes the motto? Probably not. But anyway, so I stamped it down and then I'm going to clear heat emboss it. There are some people, and I've seen other crafters, where they do all of their stamping at one time. I never feel like I get a great impression when I do that. So I am typically a stamp one, put my clear embossing powder on it, and then heat set it, and then continue stamping. That does mean that it takes me a little bit longer, but then I know that like my ink is wet, my powder is going to stick, and I'm not going to have any issues. And I just love, embossing in general is amazing, but it's like a little bit of magic, and I like watching that process happen every single time that I do it. So once I have the flower done, I'm going to put that back in place. I'm going to get my leaves where I want them to be, and then I will be using that same masking paper. Here is where it's a do as I say, not as I do. I did not retreat my paper with my anti-static tool, and I probably should have. And so the next leaf I will, but so then I'm just going to remove this mask and then put the clear embossing powder on again, and you'll be able to see I have some stick where I didn't necessarily want it to. I think it was honestly a fingerprint that it was sticking to, but I did just go in and clean that up with a dry paintbrush, and it was fine. But one of the things that you do have to watch out with if you're using masks like I am, sometimes it can leave a little bit of stick behind on the object you're masking, and you want to make sure that you clean off any of the clear embossing powder that may be sticking to the stickiness left over from your mask. So since this part does take me a little bit longer, I'm just going to show you one of the flowers instead of both of them. So, but like I said, there's a couple of different ways you can do it, and I would encourage you to try to see, try each one and figure out which one works for you. Just because it's a fun, easy way to kind of add something to your background. I recently did a video where I used the clear embossing on a background of a black card, and it just kind of reminded me that I really loved it and that I should probably be using it again. So here's the two next to each other. You can see how much softer that ink is when it dries. It is still visible, but it is just much more subtle. And then from there, we're going to move on to stamping out our images. I have laid out one of the large dahlias, two of the leaves, and then the kind of like the little bloom, the side view, and I'm going to be stamping two of these, one for each card. So since I'm using my Copic markers, I am stamping this in Honeybee's intense, I think it's intense black, ink that's safe for alcohol markers. And then once I get that stamped down, then we're going to move on to the coloring. You can see me doing the CPR method in this entire video because somehow I let Caitlin play with my stamp pressure tool and now I can't find it. So I have to go on the hunt through the craft room, and if you guys are anything like me, you know that that's going to take me a minute to hunt through my craft room. With the coloring of these, if you've never watched my videos before, I do like to go lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest with my Copic coloring. I typically use a 4-color blend, and when you're coloring your two midtones, so in this particular flower, I'm using a YO2, a YO8, a YR24, and an E99. The two in the middle is what you should see the most of, the YO8 and the YR24. The other ones, on the outside, the YO2 and the E99, are my highlights and my shadows. And that's not going to overtake your whole flower. So your midtones really should be what you see the most of. This particular flower is drawn in a way that there's lots of guidelines on where to add your shading. So you could follow those guidelines to see where you need to add what. And then also keep in mind any time that two objects lay on top of one another, there should be shading, and any point where two objects meet, there should be shading. Now that doesn't mean a lot of shading. It just means a little bit of darkness. So you don't want to put a ton of pressure on your marker. You should really just be coloring with the tip of your marker. I use the blending nib side, and there's a chisel on the other side, but I almost never use it. And so you should really just be barely touching your paper with the tip of the marker. There should not be a lot of pressure that you're putting down, because then you're going to get pooling, you're going to get bleeding. We're trying to color inside the lines, at least on this particular project. Sometimes you can go in there and just, do it real quick. I am a messy colorist. I almost always, on every image that I color outside of the lines at some point. But fortunately, I'm a person who believes that you should adapt and make it work. And so I found a bunch of tips and tricks to hide those little boo-boos that I make. But yeah, so we're just going to be doing a lot of coloring. I'm going to be doing a yellow flower. That's the one that you're seeing here. I'll show you one of the leaves, and then I'll also be doing violet. For the violet, I just showed you the side view of the flower, so you could see what that looked like. Because these flowers did take me a little while, I felt like it was not an effective use of time to show you coloring the same flower with two different color combinations, because I colored them the same way. So I literally, before I came up here, I asked my husband, I was like, hey, this is kind of a longer video and I don't really have a story. Do you got something? Maybe a suggestion, a story suggestion? And he was like, nope, nothing. Got nothing for you. So there's a couple of things in the past videos that I wanted to note that people had commented on. You guys know my family has been sick for ages. Since the dinosaurs came, my family has been sick. So I told you Nathan got over it in 24 hours. That was a lie. It was a lie. Determined it was a lie. Friday morning, my ex-husband sent Eric and I a text message and was like, hey, FYI, he got up and threw up in the middle of the night. So I'm just keeping him at my house. And I'm like, okay, like that is what it is. Like he was fine for 2 days. Like was sick on Monday. He was fine Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then it was technically Friday that he got sick because it was like 2:00 in the morning. And then he was sick again. This is the weirdest stomach bug I have ever even seen. Ever. So, Friday evening, I called him and I was like, has he gotten sick anymore? And he was like, no, just the one time. I asked him what he ate the night before, and he said his stomach was bothering him even the night before, so he only had like a little bit of watermelon, some M&Ms that his grandma gave him, and I think he said he had some Cheerios. Maybe he was referring to now that I think about it, I gave him Cheerios for breakfast, so maybe that's what he was talking about. So maybe he just had watermelon and M&Ms. Anyway, he never told anybody he didn't feel good. And so, I told him, hey, buddy, if you had told somebody that you didn't feel well, because I said, did you feel bad when you were here at home? And he said, no, I didn't start feeling bad until we were in the middle of swimming. My ex-husband's mother, Nathan's grandmother, came and picked him up on Thursday because his cousins were in town and she wanted to take all the kids swimming. So she came and picked him up. And he said when they were in the middle of swimming is when he started to kind of feel meh. Which then my question would be, why did you eat the M&Ms? But I know the answer because he's 9. That's why he ate the M&Ms. So then he got sick that night. He was fine, I guess, on Friday. He had some dry cereal, had some soup. But then Friday night, I drove over there to give him another dose of the anti-nausea meds. So as I am doing this voiceover, it's about 4:30 on Saturday, and he still has not been sick again. But now I don't trust it. I don't trust it. So we're still riding it out for Miss Caitlin as well. We're giving her meds every day like they told us to. So she gets those meds for 5 days, and then if she throws up on day 6, we have to go to a gastro specialist. So, man, I hope not. I hope she's able to kick it. But anyway, there was something else that I wanted to note. There was somebody who'd left a comment, Sarah, I think. She had left a comment and said that her kids had milk allergies, and maybe I might want to look into that. Caitlin's on soy, and Nathan was on soy. So my dad, myself, my sister were all allergic to milk as babies. And so with Peanut, when I had him, I did not listen. I had like that mom instinct, and I was like, I think I should put him on soy. And the hospital staff was like, just because you were allergic doesn't mean he will be. And so I put him on regular milk formula, and sure enough, he was allergic. That poor baby just screamed like the first 2 weeks of his life. He couldn't go to the bathroom. He spit up all the time. I mean, it was terrible. And so I think at probably we were in the hospital for 3 days. I was home for like 3 days trying to figure it out. So it was probably like the week mark that I called the pediatrician and I was like, this something, like it's not right. Something is wrong. And then they told me to switch to soy. And then it took him that long to like process it to be able to go to the bathroom and not be uncomfortable. So then when Caitlin was born, I didn't even try the milk. I put her directly on soy, and she has been on that. Now that she's older, she's 9 months now, people. Can you even believe it? It's happening. It's going by so quickly. But the doctor just gave us the okay to start giving her more like people foods, like pancakes, waffles, cut up fruit, and yogurt. And so I asked him, I was like, she's on soy. Is it okay to give her yogurt? And he said it should be fine. She's had yogurt bites with no issues. So we'll see how that goes. We have not given her any of that yet because she has been sick. I'm not adding anything else to the mix. We don't want to incorporate something else she might have an allergy to that we miss because she's, still got this stomach issue. So that was very nice of you, but unfortunately that's not my issue. And then the other thing that was super nice, and I know I'm backed up on getting back on your comments. I am, because when I go through them all myself and I read all of them and I respond to all of them. And so sometimes I read them as they're coming in, but I don't have time to respond. And so I wait to go through them when I have time to properly respond. And I did notice, which I think is wonderful, and I just wanted to tell you guys, not that you didn't know you were wonderful, but I also know you were wonderful, and I want to acknowledge that. So there was a lady who had made a comment on one of my videos, Carolyn, and she was like, just stumbled across your video, really enjoyed your card, new subscriber here. Which does happen. I'm blessed enough that it happens to me more frequently than not, that I end up with new subscribers, which I'm extraordinarily grateful for. But what happened that I thought was just amazing was like 3 or 4 people responded to her comment and were like, welcome to the channel. You're going to love Kelly. You're going to love her stories. You're going to love her family. And it was just so sweet to see other people like welcoming her. It just really warmed my heart. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that. Obviously, we've talked a lot about in the last few months, me working part-time outside of our house. So that's the other thing. In the middle of all of this sickness, this is the first week that Eric's been on call. So that means he can get called in the middle of the night at any time. And I also worked 3 days in dispatch. So we're just like run ragged, we just are. We're just in it. And so thank God for our mothers, really, truly thank God for our mothers, because they help, give us a break with all of this craziness that's going on. And like my mom's on standby on call weeks because she lives so close to us that if I am at work and Eric gets called in, then, at 2:00 in the morning, we're going to call my mom and she's going to come down here and basically, sleep at our house so that we don't have to wake our kids up and transfer them somewhere. Fortunately, my mother is a night owl. That is where I get it from. So usually I'm getting home from work like in the middle of the night. So she stays up. And so hopefully we won't be like waking her up out of bed. But yeah, so that's been going on in the middle of all of this as well. Something to note about the card. So after I was done coloring my leaf, I felt like my shadows weren't as dark as I wanted them to be. So I'm just going to go back in with my darkest marker and just kind of bolster up those shadows just a little bit, just a few little flicks here and there. Here's that violet flower that I was telling you about. These are the colors that I used for those. This is a pretty typical color combination for me. It's pretty much my go-to if I want to color something purple. And then I'm just going to do this little side flower, and then we'll move on to the die cutting, stamping of a sentiment, and assembling the card. So yeah, it's been a crazy lot. So, what was I going to tell you? I don't even remember. See, that's the problem with it. Feels like we're having a conversation between two craft friends, but if we were sitting together, then you would be able to tell me what I was talking about instead of me occasionally losing my train of thought. Oh, now I know where I was going with this. So with that being said, because our parents are able to help us out, somebody had said, now that this is like my job, so I'm doing card making full time, and I'm working outside of the house part time, that they really feel like my card making has kind of soared. It's kind of been elevated. And I would agree with you. I do think that is true, but I think it's because I have more time to do it. I was limited just like everybody else. We're all working, taking care of families, taking care of family members, have maybe some other obligations outside of our house, volunteering, or, things that we're involved in. And so when I didn't have like carte blanche time, not that I do anyway now, because I still got to get up and take care of my kids in the morning and get them to where they need to go. School's starting in 2 weeks, if you can even believe it. And then come home, work, get my kids, back from where they have gone, do dinner, do, bath time, bedtimes, all of those things. And they've been sick for eons now. So I do have more time to do it and kind of play and experiment with maybe other types of card making that before I would not have spent the time on, because either it was too time consuming or I wasn't sure it would be something that I liked. And so I kept myself kind of reserved to the things I already knew that I enjoyed. And so that part of this little journey has been very fun. I wish that I had time. Right now, I'm always hustling. That is how I feel. Like I am always hustling the next release, the next video, the next, whatever obligation that I have signed up for. And I don't mean obligation in a bad way. I just mean that the people or companies have reached out to me and asked me to do something, and I have made a commitment to them. And so those are things that I need to accomplish because I said I would. And so I do wish that I had a little bit more time to get together the back end of things. We've been talking about classes, and we've been talking about Patreon, the mystery boxes. We've been talking about a lot of things for a lot of months. And those are the things that I just haven't had time to get to yet. And I wish that I had more time for those things. So maybe we're gearing up for another vacation week at the end of the month. Because our wedding anniversary and my birthday both fall within 5 days of each other. Back to the card. So here, I'm just showing you the difference now that everything is all dry, how much more subtle that stamping was. And then we're going to go ahead and do the die cutting, of all of these images so that I can start to build the card. I did want to show you just a couple of different ways that you could arrange these. I didn't want both of my cards to look identical. I wanted them to look similar. They're the same images and they're going to be photographed together. And I'm real picky about my matchy-matchy. But there's a couple of different ways that you could put these guys together and get a really pretty image. And so I just wanted to show you, you don't always have to stick to the same orientation. If you're went into it thinking that it was going to be a vertical card and you're not feeling it, try it horizontal. See how that works. For the sentiments, I love these. They're very large and super pretty. And so I'm going to stamp these down just in black on the same craft colored cardstock and die cut them out. And then you're going to see that I cannot let the white stand. I can't. I have a problem. Also, do as I say, not as I do. If you're going to outline the images, I didn't think I was going to, but then after I die cut everything out, I couldn't stop myself. Do the outlining before you die cut them out. But anyway, so here, I can't let the white outline just be the white outline. That's insanity. I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. So I'm using my Copic markers to try to find a good match to this background. I ended up going with an E55, and it was just too bright. But because Copic markers are transparent, and just like how we blend them when we're coloring with images, you can also change the tone of them by combining colors. So once I realized that this was going to be a close match, but just a little too bright, and I'm going to show you here, I went in with my gray marker back on that same scrap piece of paper. And this is a W3, so it's a warm gray. What is that? Is that my I don't know if that banging is my dog or my child. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure which, but I hope that it stops shortly. I don't even know if you can hear it, but I can. So here, the one on the right has the gray, the one on the left is not. So once I colored all of those in, here's where I went and did the outline. I'm going to add some white gel pen detail to the center of the flowers and then assemble them. But so yeah, so I wish I had a little bit of time on the back end for those other things, but hopefully when we go on vacation, we are going to actually go on vacation, ish. Not really. We're going to spend some time alone, just he and I, and that in and of itself is a vacation. Because see, we've never really gotten to celebrate our wedding anniversary. The year that we got married was 2020, so we're in the middle of a pandemic. So for our honeymoon, we didn't really go anywhere. If you remember, we went to grandma's basement and it was musty smelling, and we ended up coming home a day early because we couldn't leave the state of Ohio. Then last year, I was very, 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 very pregnant with Caitlin, and so we didn't go anywhere for that. I mean, we went out to dinner, but we didn't do anything. I guess we didn't do anything where we were by ourselves, where we were alone, we were kids free, because I was toting my kid along with me. And so this year I am excited for us to be able to go, I've made reservations for dinner to go be adults. Our kids are going to have their first sleepovers at grandma's. Caitlin hasn't spent that night anywhere ever yet. So I'll be excited for her first little sleepover to see how that goes. Hopefully she is on her best behavior and our parents aren't exhausted. So here, now both of the cards are put together. You can see the one on the right has the clear heat embossing. The one on the left has the no line coloring stamp, which again is more subtle. If you are interested in seeing more pictures, like more close-ups, you can obviously head over to Instagram. There's always photos there. Added a little bit of shimmer, and then that is it. The cards are finished. I was really happy with the way that they came out. I'd love to hear what your opinion is on them. And if you would be interested in seeing the other ways to do the tone-on-tone stamping, or if you would even be interested in trying them. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.